Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, text number 41.
Right.
What? 41. Vacham juhava manasi,
Vacham juhava manasi,
Tat prana itare chatam,
Tat prana itare chatam,
Mritya apanam satsargam,
Mritya apanam satsargam,
Tam panchatve hi ajohati,
Tam panchatve hi ajohati,
Vacham juhava manasi,
Vacham juhava manasi,
Tat prana itare chatam,
Tat prana itare chatam,
Mrityavanam satsargam,
Mrityavanam satsargam,
Tam panchatvehi ajohavi,
Tam panchatvehi ajohavi, Vacham juhava manasi, Vacham juhava manasi, Tat prana itare chatam, Tat prana itare chatam, Mrityavanam satsorgam, Mrityavanam satsorgam, Tam panchatvehi ajohavit, Tam panchatvehi ajohavit, Vacham juhava manasi. Tat prana itare chatam. Mrityavapanam sotsargam. Tam panchatvehi ajo havit.
Next. Ladies.
Vacham juhava manasi. Tat prana itare chatam. Mrityavapanam sotsargam. Tam panchatvehi ajo havit. Vacham juhava manasi. Tat prana itare chatam. Mrityava apanam sotsargam. Tam panchatvehi ajo havit. Vacham juhava manasi. Mrityava itare chatam. Mrityava apanam sotsargam. Tam panchatvehi ajo havit.
Word for word. Vacham. Speeches. Juhava. Relinquished. Manasi. Into the mind. Tat prane. Mind into breathing. Itare cha. Other senses also. Tam. Unto that.
Into that.
Mrityo. Into death. Apanam. Breathing. Sha'ut shargam. With all dedication. Tam. That. Panchatve. Into the body made of 5 elements. He certainly ajohavit amalgamated it. Let me read it through one time, then we'll repeat. Then he amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind. Then the mind into life into breathing, his total existence into the embodiment of the 5 elements, and his body unto death. Then, as pure self, he became free from material conception of life. Please repeat. Then he amalgamated all the sense organs. Into the mind. Then the mind into life. Life into breathing. His total existence into the embodiment. Of the 5 elements. And his body into death. Then as pure self. He became free. From the material conception of life. Wow, I could just feel myself doing it, couldn't you? Did you merge yours? No, you didn't do it. You followed it all, right? You understood what it is? You've done that before?
No, I don't.
You know that.
I didn't understand when he said info.
Y'all give me the best verses. Y'all laughed at me waiting for this verse, didn't you?
No, you always get the best one. You said you hit the lot of the last one.
Purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This will help. Maharaj Yudhishthira, like his brother Arjuna, began to concentrate and gradually became free from all material bondage. First, he concentrated all the actions of the senses and amalgamated them into the mind. Or in other words, this is an important phrase here, or in other words that you can maybe understand. He turned his mind toward the transcendental service of the Lord. Y'all follow that, right? He prayed that since all material activities are performed by the mind in terms of actions and reactions of the material senses, and since he was going back to Godhead, the mind would wind up its material activities and be turned towards the transcendental service to the Lord. There was no longer a need for material activities. Actually, the activities of the mind cannot be stopped, for they are reflections of the eternal soul. But the quality of the activities can be changed from matter to the transcendental service of the Lord. The material color, and this is really sweet, the material color of the mind is changed when one washes it from contamination of life breathing. Prabhupada can't resist a little bit of yogi talk. You know, he knows we don't know what he's talking about, and he thought, let me give him a little yogi talk just to show them why the realm that I function in. Yes, I'll read it about 5 times. You still won't get it. The material color of the mind is changed when one washes it from contaminations of life breathing and thereby frees it from the contamination of repeated births and deaths and situates it in pure spiritual life. From the contamination of life breathing. I'm just saying, I know it makes perfect sense. But it's like we show just how novice, how neophyte we are. That's all. All is manifested by the temporary embodiment of the material body, which is a production of the mind at the time of death. And if the mind is purified by the practice of transcendental loving service to the Lord and is constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, there is no more chance of the mind producing another material body after death. It will be freed from absorption in material contamination. The pure soul will be able to return home back to Godhead. Om Tat Sat, Om Ganati Miranda Sagana Janata Lakaya, Chakshu Shumalitamina, Tadma Sigurveda. So I read this yesterday. I cheated a little bit. I wasn't going to, I looked at the verse and I said, oh my God. I read it about 10 times. That's why I'm making so much fun about, I was saying, can you read it again? I kept rereading it, kept rereading it. What does it mean? You know, I mean, it says, the material color of the mind is changed when one washes it from contamination of life breathing. You know, wait, put it in the wash machine. Or how do you wash the mind from life breathing? First off, what's life breathing?
Are you saying light or light?
L-I-F-E. Life breathing. Life-breathing. Life breathing. So, what I did was I said, you know, this is really a good example of how we need a spiritual master. Because the yogis, you know, they get all caught up in this impersonal stuff they really do, and it's kind of like, they sit there and they act like they're doing something. But in today's college, they don't know what the heck they're doing. I don't care what they say. They're idiots. They're pretending like they're yogis and they're talking about something, you know, wow. They have no clue what real yoga means. They have no, Prabhupada, one sentence here, Prabhupada would bewilder them for the rest of their life. They'd be running around like reading. They'll never figure it out, right? So we know we can't figure it out, ultimately. We're just not equipped with the mechanism to have the backdrop of the knowledge base to figure this out. But we have, thank God, a lot of other books. This is not the only verse we have. So we have all of Prabhupada's books, and we have the Bhagavad Gita, right? So, thank goodness that Prabhupada is giving us the totality of the process, not just one verse that you have to, if you don't understand this verse, and have a practical endeavor from this verse, there's purport in you, there's no way you can practice Bhakti Yoga. Now, Bhakti Yoga is a great art, and it has voluminous subject matter. Prabhupada given. Voluminous. So we can study. Now eventually you get it and you realize, oh yeah, that's what he meant. But the way the yogis speak is so difficult for us because we don't have a mystic yoga background. These guys all have mystic yoga background. They've merged the body in the totality of the elements before. Now, we have no clue what an element is. We flunked biology or chemistry. You didn't know what elements are, Much less, how can you merge the elements into the totality of the cosmos? It's like, all right, I'll be here a while, but I'll try. So I looked up, and one verse I thought that really fit good is Bhagavad Gita. I got like 4 verses that I thought would be really relevant. And just kind of made me feel like, okay, I kind of understand what's going on now. So the first one is the Bhagavad Gita 2:46. It's Yavanartha udapane sarvata samputodake kavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijnanata. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind it. So the point being is, all of this can be served if we understand what's the purpose of the Vedas. What is the whole point of the Vedas? Why are we practicing and studying the Vedas? Is it just to have a riddle? No. A riddle has arisen. But there is a solution because we have a bona fide spiritual master. It says, Srila Prabhupada, the rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Karma Kanda division of the Vedic literature are meant to encourage gradual development of self-realization. And the purpose of self-realization is clearly stated in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to, I bet you know that, don't you? What's the purpose of the Vedas? To know Lord Krishna. We know that. So now we're back into our lingo. This is not about life, breathing, and washing the mind, color stuff. Know Lord Krishna, the primeval cause of everything. So self-realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with Him. The relationship of the living entities with Krishna is also mentioned in the 15th chapter. The living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, revival of Krishna consciousness by the individual living entity is the highest perfectional stage of Vedic knowledge. That's it. That's the purpose of the Vedas. Right there. It says, the living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, revival of Krishna consciousness by the individual living entity is the highest perfectional stage of Vedic knowledge. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. O my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family like that of a Chandala, dog eater, is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. Such a person must have performed all kinds of penances and sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals and studied the Vedic literatures many, many times after taking his bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. Such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. Who is that? Who are we talking about? A person that just did all this bathing in all the holy places and all the penances. Who is that? Yeah. One who has chanted your holy name. One who has chanted your holy name. One who chants Hare Krishna. We shouldn't feel inferior because we don't know what life breathing is. We have a bona fide spiritual master. The reason he does that is because that's yogi speak. He doesn't artificially, blank it out. He shows us, yeah, you can never figure this out. But that's okay because you have me to help you. So one must be intelligent enough to understand the purpose of the Vedas without being attached to the rituals only, and must not desire to be elevated to the heavenly kingdoms for a better quality of sense gratification. Simple. We know we're on our platform now. So what do we want? We want to serve Krishna. We want to chant Krishna's name. We don't want to go to heaven and try to enjoy sense gratification. This we can all relate to now. But it's the same thing because it's the purpose of the Vedas. It is not possible for the common man in this age to follow all the rules and regulations of the Vedic rituals, nor is it possible to study all the Vedanta and the Upanishads thoroughly. It requires much time, energy, knowledge, and resources to execute the purpose of the Vedas. This is hardly possible in this age. The purpose of the Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of the Lord as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, the deliverer of all fallen souls. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by a great Vedic scholar, Prakashananda Saraswati, why he, the Lord, was chanting the holy name of the Lord like a sentimentalist. Instead of studying Vedanta philosophy, the Lord replied that his spiritual master had found him to be
a fool,
a great fool, and thus asked him to chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. He did so, and he became ecstatic like a madman. In this age of Kali, most of the population is foolish and not adequately educated to understand Vedanta philosophy. The best purpose of Vedanta philosophy is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. Vedanta is the last word in Vedic wisdom, and the author and knower of the Vedanta philosophy is Lord Krishna. And the highest Vedantist is the great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. This is the ultimate purpose of the Vedic mysticism. The ultimate purpose of Vedic mysticism is to take pleasure in chanting the Lord's holy name. So if we took this out of context, we might be bewildered. If this was the first verse you ever read, and you thought that's Krishna consciousness, you would be like, oh my God. Like I tried to read Bhagavad Gita when I had Krishna book, and I read Krishna book. I loved the stories, I was really into it. I didn't know Krishna was God really, but I loved it. I read it over and over and over. I took it with me everywhere. I guess it was my little book that I go with everywhere. And then somebody gave me the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm like, I couldn't read it. It was just too hard for me to read. It didn't make sense to me. It's like I had to work, and I read it, and I had to think again. That's not for me. So I think about that. I'm thinking there must be different types of personalities. There must be Bhagavad Gita personalities and Krishna book personalities. So I relate better to Krishna book personalities. And then as another one that I thought would be relevant, that Bhagavad Gita, it's not as long, 4:24. It's the verse is really, I just wanted to read the verse because it's so similar to what we read in this purport. It's Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnu Brahmanahutam Brahmanaiva Tena Gataivyam Brahmakarma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So we get kind of a little bit like a segue there, right? Between the two verses, the 2 points, where we're talking about, amalgamation of life, air, and sense, all that. Well, here Prabhupada's explaining that, in this verse, Krishna is explaining that a person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities. Because we're always acting in Krishna consciousness. Everything we're doing, making garlands, or picking flowers, or cooking for Krishna, or filming things for Krishna, or cleaning the temple, or doing artik, or selling books, or whatever. Talking about Krishna. Whatever we're doing, that's Krishna conscious activity. Now that is what brings us to the platform to where in which the consummation is absolute, and that which is offered of the same spiritual nature. So in other words, it just automatically happens. It doesn't have to be an artificial thing to where we do something and we're like, oh my God, I'll never figure out how to do that. But we do know how to do it because we're doing it every day of our life. And then 4:32. Evam bahu vidajaga vitata vamano mukhe karma gyan viditam tarvan evam yatva vimokshase. Translation: all these different types of sacrifices are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. Purport: different types of sacrifices discussed above are mentioned in the Vedas to suit the different types of worker. Because men are so deeply absorbed in the bodily concept, these sacrifices are arranged so that one can work either with the body, with the mind, or with the intelligence. But all of them are recommended, ultimately bringing about liberation from the body. This is confirmed by the Lord herewith from his own mouth. So the point being is that different types of sacrifice for different people. Not everyone is going to be a mystic yogi, which is what this is, what Arjuna and all the way back to Dhritarashtra. It began with Dhritarashtra. We read about them merging in there, right? So these are all mystic yoga process, where you finish up with this merging and then you become one. Bhakti yoga, on the other hand, we're practicing. You get the same goal. All purposes of a large pond, small pond is served by the large pond. So if you know the purposes behind the Vedas and you know how to become Krishna conscious, you don't need to know it. It's nothing, doesn't hold us back. And then finally, 434, which I think is the most important one. Anybody know what 434 is? The most famous verse. You probably know it when you hear it. Tadvidi paripatena paripasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. You know what that means?
Just try to learn the truth.
Spiritual master.
Inquire from him submissively.
Self-realized soul can have knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth.
Exactly. So the bottom line is, today's verse and prayer for it emphasized the need for a bona fide spiritual master. And never before has it ever been so clear to me why one cannot make spiritual master without a bona fide spiritual master, because if you try to study the Vedas independently, this is even in a simple Bhagavatam. This is not really getting into Vedanta where you get into some pretty kind of esoteric stuff where it gets pretty, you know what I mean? Like some of the yoga systems where they, Tantra yoga where you cut the tongue and stick it up the nostrils and stuff, It's there. And if you don't know, if you don't have a guide, somebody to tell you, you'll end up doing some pretty weird stuff. So, purport by Srila Prabhupada, the path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord Himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. The Bhagavatam says, Dharmam tu shikshad Bhagavata pranitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender. And one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant, without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. I'll read that again. Inquiry and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. You ask, but you're humble and you're wanting to serve, but you want to know too. The perfect combination. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. Like you're just doing some business. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, Prabhupada gives the example of if a man goes to the blacksmith and wants a sword made, but he buys cheap metal and brings it to the sword maker and says, "Hey, blacksmith, make me a great sword." It's a cheap metal. How can he make a good sword out of cheap metal? So in the same way, when you go to the spiritual master, the disciple has to be qualified too. You can't just think, "Oh, the spiritual master is going to put his hand on my head and I'm going to become a great devotee." No, you have to want to become a devotee. He automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him. In submission and service and inquiries, a bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries become perfect. On the face. Let me get down to that. So, I thought those were the kind of bring it to the point where when you read a verse like this and it's so bewildering, and you're like, a lot of times we just act like we know what it meant, but it's like, oh sure, yeah, I understood. Actually had no clue. It's like, what was that all about? But the fortunate thing is that by reading all Prabhupada's other purports, like one time I asked, because we had somebody told me, you have to read the Bhagavatam, you can't just go anywhere and read it. You can't just go to this book or that book, you have to read them in sequence, So I was like bewildered because I had these books I wanted to read, but I couldn't because I didn't have the other. And so I asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I said, anywhere there's a purport with Srila Prabhupada, you can read it. Anywhere there's a purport with Srila Prabhupada, you can read it, don't worry. So the point being is that with a spiritual master, then suddenly everything makes sense. Without a spiritual master, nothing makes sense. No matter how brilliant we think we are, or how educated we think we are, or how big mystic yogis we think we are. I used to have one devotee here that told me he could push walls with his energy, And I said,
Could you put some walls up for us and make some real conscious?
It was so insane, I don't know so much. So anyway, I wrote a little poem about it. You can laugh at this one. I just wrote it quickly with a little humor about it. I hear about life force and merge and stuff. Understanding this for me is really tough. I try to imagine and I draw a blank. No matter how long I sit and think. I nod my head like I understand what was said. But really I only see air in my head. So merging my life air might take a while. But I feel quite at home seeing your sweet smile.
There you go.
So the bona fide spiritual master, that was the point of how my whole life, I've been reading these verses and I get bewildered. And I just like, why do I have to even read that? What am I going to do with that, And then I had to do a talk on it, and I was like, what am I going to do here? And then I thought, well, maybe you should read some other purports like other devotees do and try to get a sense of what it means in totality. And then it all just kind of clicked, and I said, yeah, it makes sense. Because the purpose of everything is to, become a devotee. Prabhupada told us a million times. So these things are in there. We shouldn't get hung up on, trying to, I don't know about y'all, but at the time of death, when you start talking, here's the verse. Then he amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind. I don't even know where they go up there, Then the mind into life. Where's life? Which life? Whose life? I don't even understand. I know kind of understand a little bit. Life into breathing. His total existence into the embodiment of the 5 elements. And his body into death. Then, as pure self, he became free from material conception of life. And then he goes on. He's already did that. I mean, what he did, he didn't even change his ability to do stuff because then he goes on with his life in devotional service. So, it's very deep stuff. And you would have to have a yogi background to be able to comprehend it. But when you put it in the context that, I believe that this happened with Yudhishthira. I do. I believe that he did this. But I believe that also he's a mystic yogi and that he's doing these things in a way that I can't comprehend because I have no mystic yoga background. Now, if he said, I just started chanting Hare Krishna and I meditated on Krishna. I fixed my mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. That's what we're familiar with. That's the departure that we're familiar with. See, the Prabhupada taught us. Prabhupada's not teaching us how to sit and do all this. It just happens to be in the Srimad Bhagavatam that's written back when the mystic yoga process was on the planet. That's I thought I'd like that. Any questions or comments?
Well,
Yes. No, go ahead, Tony.
Well, because Prabhupada didn't, when he left his body the way we would do his body, to set an example for us. He didn't go at Yudhishthira to the Himalayas and through this kind of process. So for us in this age, is that still Gopara Yuga we're talking about? And so for us in this age, Prabhupada showed us how to leave our bodies,
Yes.
which is to chant Hare Krishna and be surrounded by the mantra. So, and then all those other things that's described in that verse, and again, I don't grasp it at all, which is a very nice job of trying to work with it. All those things just happen automatically. Like things, I don't know how I'm digesting my food or not digesting my food. I don't know why that happens. I don't know why this sound comes out of my voice when I talk. I don't know why my hair grows. Or sometimes you have bald spots. All of that, there's certain things that happen, but a yogi, obviously, they seem to have, like the story of Dhruva Maharaj, he actually had stopped, not only stopped eating, but he had stopped breathing. And he was just living on one breath a month. And it was suffocating the entire world. So, obviously,
There's a mystic yoga path that is like,
breathing air is a material activity.
yeah, it's like being a musician or something. When you start talking notes and stuff, I'm lost, So, but a musician, they got it. They understand chords and notes and all that stuff. So I think mystic yoga is sort of like that. It's like you got to know it's an art form that you have to perfect. Because it says he merged. Then he amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind. So the mind is something we can understand that's separate. It's the totality of the mind. There's a big body of mind there, right? So we know it's there. We know that mind is not necessarily individual. It's an energy, it's force. It's a subtle energy, but it exists. So somehow he knows how to separate them. That's all. He knows how to separate them and then merge his in back into it. No, put it back on the shelf. I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. Then he merged the body into death. So evidently he transcended death. But this is the mystic yoga. We can't do it because we haven't conquered that. We don't have that ability. But the point is it's the same. But when you chant Hare Krishna, it all happens at one time.
So the first time I read that many years ago, I thought it turned himself into something like air. And then I was surprised in the next verse he's still walking around doing things. So I was totally confused. But I tend to reconcile that by thinking, well, we do that by reading Bhagavad Gita. We learn the definitions of things and what things really are and where they come from. We learn we're not those things. And it seems like that's a process that he was doing.
And we go back to what Chaitanya's instruction. I'm just a fool. Like Prabhupada only gave me one instruction, really, truly, directly to me, looking right at me and said, chant Hare Krishna. That's all I needed to hear. Now, every time I think about something, I just chant Hare Krishna. Yes, Mother Hardani? Yes, ma'am?
It reminded me of there's a book called Chanting Hare Krishna, and in it was a conversation between the Beatles and Yoko Ono. And Yoko Ono was saying, well, if God has many names, why can't we just chant any name of God? And then Prabhupada gave the example of when you go to the pharmacy or something and you want to get some kind of medicine and it's a prescription or something that was, and you can't just go, and say, I want this prescription. No, you have to have the doctor fill out the prescription and then it'll get there.
She didn't like that part, probably.
Papa made the point. He's so good at expert at examples. This keeps my dog brain going. And but the point was that he mentioned now Lord Chaitanya, he gave the prescription or the prescribed method to obtain God realization.
Yes.
To go back to God, and that was the mantra, the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yes. The trouble is surrendering to an authority. They don't want to surrender to an authority. They want to be the authority. And we're fortunate because we somehow or another, we were puffed up just like they were, but somehow or another we through the process. Somehow. How? I don't know, but I'm just saying. What were you going to say, Mother Johnny?
Just in the Bhakti Shastri lectures, the last day or two, Prabhu was saying about how the mystic yogis, how they cause the light air to rise and that the goal is to have it to go to rise to the top of the head and burst out. And then he was saying, if it goes out of one of the, usually it goes from one of the holes of the body. So if it goes out through a lower hole, it's inauspicious. But if it goes out through someplace higher, then it's good. So they're actually making another hole. And so he was like kind of talking about, and then at the end he goes, anyway, just like you said, anyway, our job is to remember Krishna. And the process for remembering Krishna is to engage in this devotional service, to chant Krishna. So it's kind of like, superfluous. Although I did say something real recently that Bhakti Sri Maharaj said that I'll send you. It's kind of long to read now, but it's a little clearer how you can dissolve the subtle body. But the conclusion is that the way that we do that is to engage in devotional service.
Yeah. Exactly. It's all about consciousness and the self, the body, the spirit body, spirit soul body. Prabhupada described it early in the movement. I remember the clear analogy. It's like a glove, like putting on a glove, and so it's in a dormancy and then it grows. So as we're watering, we're growing. Our body, our spiritual body, we're reforming. It becomes more so that this body then becomes like Arjuna was already at that point. Arjuna was at that point. Arjuna too, of course, before. But the point being is that they reached the point where their material body, they didn't need it anymore. So they had their spiritual body. For us, we're not mystic yogis who do it by the process of this, that we just chant Hare Krishna, remember Krishna, and then, the next thing we know, the Vishnu Dutas are there. From what I understand, that's how it works.
Thank you so much for the clarification. Thank you for the clarification on the life breathing. I did a word search on this Apanam. On Apanam. Just on that word, A-P-A-N-A-M. Okay. And it's 3 verses it appears in. One was the famous 429 about the outer breath meeting the inner breath, and that's pranayama yoga.
Yes.
And that's exactly what...
Krishna guides us through whatever. If we choose, when you choose to do anything for Krishna, Krishna will guide you if we allow Krishna to guide us. You have to just get to the point where you're only a Hare Krishna. That's all we are. We're not something else. Yes.
As everyone was speaking, so to remember other things that Prabhupada said in relation to, let's say, he used the example of you take an iron rod and you put it in fire. It takes on the qualities of fire. So for the devotees, we may be living in a similar building, in a house or an apartment. And we're eating and we're sleeping. The difference is that we're doing everything for Krishna. And so what they're doing in their house is material. But we're becoming spiritualized, like when we offer prasad, it becomes spiritualized, Krishnaized. And so gradually, the more we absorb ourselves in the hearing and chanting and the process of devotional service, we're becoming Krishnaized. And so, I don't know if exactly it's the same as what is described in this mystic process, but it is a mystic process. It's like Prabhupada said, you may not understand how the mantra works. Just like the doctor gives you an aspirin, you don't know how that chemical is reacting in your body in such a way that your headache is gone. It doesn't matter. All you know is it works.
Yeah.
So whether we understand the language and the potency of the sound vibration, it's spiritualizing.
It is actually.
That's exactly the example that Bhakti Sri Maharaj gave. Exactly. According to Srila Prabhupada, just as iron in contact with fire becomes red hot, is it iron or fire in the audience? Fire. So this is how one becomes free from the bondage of the subtle body. His activities through his body, his mind and speech are engaged in serving Krishna. Then he becomes liberated.
Exactly. But this is the yoga. This is yoga. And sometimes we think, oh, it's, it's just, this is not real yoga. Real yoga is doing the... And in other ages, there were different pranayama and all the different yoga processes that people follow. Yeah, it's an eightfold mystic yoga path. It is. And, of course, Arjuna and Yudhisthira had already perfected that. They had already attained that. They were mystic, perfect yogis, right? So we are not perfect yogis. We are beginners, basically. But the wonderful thing is we can be beginners and finishers in one lifetime. That's the special prerogative, remember, that we have. Special prerogative. As Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced a system of yoga. It's called bhakti, but it's just simply chanting the holy name. Same thing. Yes, ma'am.
I somehow keep seeing, I'm seeing it, I figure out how to say it, more as a philosophical process than a mystic yoga process. What he's doing is he's applying the philosophy to dispose of attachments. Identifying things and what they go with and what they really are,
Yes.
to free himself from attachments. One by one, level by level, he's just putting them through the philosophy and
Yes.
freeing himself.
Yes, exactly. And but how can you merge it into death? How can you merge your body into
What
death?
I mean is like understanding the body.
But death is it has it's got a locker, It's got its own locker. Death has got its locker, Everything you're merging back into these things, so it has a place to merge it. We can't realize that. It's too subtle for us.
The word amalgamate and the word merge can mean an intellectual process too. Put this idea in this. Put this idea in this. Understand this
So you're saying it's allegorical.
I'm saying it's a philosophical
You're saying
process
it's
of
allegorical. Right?
disposing with these attachments. We're attached to the body, the air, the breathing, all these things.
I hear you, but
This is part of me. And when he's disposing of it by understanding that it goes with that, not me.
Maybe. I don't know.
It can be both.
You may be.
Might be mystic process.
No, I don't know.
That's how I'm seeing when
You may be. You may be right.
Yeah.
You may be totally right.
It seems like it
I
may
just don't
not
know.
have to be that mystical, but if you just apply intellectually, body will be the philosophy, like Prabhupada said, religion without philosophy is sentimentality. So we're supposed to put the philosophy into it too, and it's not shouldn't be too mystical.
Then maybe you could explain to me that about the material color of the mind is changed when one washes it from contamination of life breathing.
That's metaphorical.
Maybe you can explain that to me philosophically.
One thing that occurred to me when you read that was that it said that the chakras actually have different colors. So I wondered, and then because of what they govern, isn't it? Krishna Shara, do you know about this? The chakras have different colors.
Yes.
And so
Chakras
maybe
have
it's
different colors,
connected to that somehow.
But
And
also,
what is the chakra in the, what color is
Isn't it
that
purple?
chakra?
Isn't
Where's
it
Manalakshmi?
your wife probably knows different colors, but I think the crown chakra isn't purple or something. But I do know when you go in poverty, it said material. It used the word material color the brain. Did it not say material?
I have no idea. I'm bewildered.
But thank you. We have bhakti
Interesting
yoga.
though, some, like you said, people are of different, caliber, mindset, and sometimes people, it's just interesting. That's why Prabhupada, so much he gave to attract whatever is the hook that you need, to get there.
All I know is wherever Srila Prabhupada says, go do it, I'll do it. He tells me to stop life breathing, I'll stop life breathing, whatever that means. I'll try.
Exactly. Don't try.
Srila Prabhupada, keep.
Yeah.
I was going to say one more quick thing about